Hello, Dr. Greg here with part 3 of our sugar deep dive. This one's going to be about the cost of sugar, the politics of sugar, just briefly touching upon that. So a lot of my information came from OpenSecret.org in the 2016 election cycle. The sugar industry contributed nearly $8 million to politicians. Party affiliation, Democrat, Republican, whatever, didn't matter. They both got pretty much equal amounts. Democrats got 1% more, Republicans got 1% less in some years and whatever. So it's pretty much split down the middle. Now, the number one contributor was called American Crystal Sugar. They contributed $2.2 million. That's with an M. The second one was called FanJoule Corp, which contributed $2 million. So two sugar corporations contributed nearly half of all the money contributed by the sugar industry to politicians. Now, so why does the sugar industry contribute to politicians? What's the gain? Well, there's a couple of things that are the gain. One, the sugar industry gets subsidies, like most farmers get subsidies. Well, the sugar industry gets subsidies from the federal government to the tune of $4 billion, with a B, billion dollars a year. $4 billion of government, federal money, our tax dollars, goes to sugar companies. That's quite a large amount of money and quite an awesome return on investment. 8 million, you get 4 billion back. The other thing is that there are tariffs that sugar companies don't have to pay, and also competition is squashed in the United States by the federal government. Also, if there's other companies around the world wanting to deliver their sugar here, they have to pay a higher tariff because politicians put a tariff on exported sugar. So the money spent by the sugar industry is well worth it to them. Now, I want to bring this down to a personal level for all of us. How does it impact us as citizens of the United States, and how this sugar costs, these subsidies and stuff, impact us? Now, here we go. In 2019, basically, Americans consumed almost 152 pounds of sugar every year. 152 pounds of sugar every year. That is about a half a pound of sugar a day. That's a lot of sugar. How about 1900? The year 1900, how much sugar did citizens consume in 1900? It was about 89 pounds. 89 pounds of sugar in 1900, 152 pounds of sugar today. So these subsidies that the sugar industry gets, also the benefit of zero competition almost, they are able to put all that effort into increasing our consumption of sugar by twofold over 100 years. Now, not only is it costing us to subsidize the sugar industry to the tune of $4 billion a year, but the other cost, you're also buying the sugar. This is just a little side note. They said if they got rid of the subsidies of the $4 billion, it would cost humans $10 more a year to consume sugar. That's kind of a reduction in how much it would cost us. But let's talk about the cost of consuming sugar on our health. Now, this is shocking, to tell you the truth. Now, the total healthcare expenditure is roughly about $1 trillion. Actually, more than $1 trillion. About $2 trillion, a little more than that. 30 to 40% of healthcare costs 30 to 40% is related to excessive sugar consumption. Now that's diabetes, obesity, and other things, pancreatic issues and stuff like that, which we're going to go into in other videos coming up. But just think about it. 30 to 40% of all healthcare costs are related to sugar consumption. So does that make you go, I wonder. My tax dollars are subsidizing the sugar industries, making me eat it more, which is actually making me suffer more and costing more health-wise. Let's just get rid of all the sugar, and what would that do? You wouldn't have diabetes or obesity, perhaps, reduced by significant amounts, and you wouldn't be spending $1 trillion every year on these diseases. $1 trillion is spent on sugar, excessive sugar consumption diseases. Let that sink in. So the sugar industry spends $8 million. They get back $4 billion, and we spend $1 trillion. It's dumping all over us. Just want you to understand that. These are numbers that are real. And this is what happens to us. If that doesn't make you stop sugar, I don't know what will. It comes out to about $3,136 per person to treat sugar-related conditions. Now, that was all very depressing. But you have the power to take control of yourself, to get off this sugar, merry-go-round, expense, whatever. Can you imagine getting rid, you're not spending money on sugar and you don't have the sugar consequences? Pancreatic cancer, diabetes, obesity, all that are results of sugar, excessive sugar consumption, which nearly twofold over 100 years. Now, let's try another tip. I'm going to promise you I was going to give you a tip on how to overcome the sugar cravings. It's hard to overcome the sugar cravings, so you have to find strategies to circumvent it. And one strategy is to have some protein instead of, so if you have a craving for sugar, go for a protein. Now, a really good protein, because it's tied in with fat, is nuts. Now, nuts, just a little bowl full of nuts, maybe with a cup of tea or something like that, will offset the desire for sugar because there's fat in there and there's protein. And fat and protein is really what your brain needs to function normally. The brain is 60% fat, the rest is protein. There's no sugar in your brain. You don't need to consume sugar for your brain. So protein and fat, and that's found in nuts, nice little package. The thing to understand is if you have no trouble with nuts, great. If you have trouble with nuts, we have to figure something else out. Okay? And nuts should be roasted. You want to make sure there are roasted nuts. You don't want to have raw nuts. And I'm going to go into that at some point in the future. But right now, this is just a little tip on how to overcome the sugar cravings. Now, 3 good nuts that have good fat content, good protein content, and tend not to be having allergic problems with is cashews, macadamia nuts, and walnuts. Almonds are fine, peanuts are not the greatest, and pecans are also fine. Pecans are actually pretty good because they have a little sweetness to it that can actually help you mentally overcome the desire to have a sweet. Again, these are roasted. These are not, sugar's not on them. There's nothing on them, just roasted nuts. A handful should actually help you overcome that initial craving. So again, just like the glass of water last time, you have about 5 to 10 seconds to make the decision not to have that cookie or piece of cake. So again, I think understanding the history of sugar and its impact financially and politically will actually give you the incentive to get off of it. That's all this week. Next week, we're going to talk about where sugar is found in our diet and how we can overcome that. So this is Dr. Greg, changing the way we look at health.